Mm-hmm. So I would say that all of the circus media surrounding George Santos and all of his lies, the circus media surrounding what they are trying to do with the 87,000 IRS workers and everything else that they've got going on was to cover up this right here. It was to cover up that they gave themselves a $34,000 pay increase. But remember, all of the Republicans and some Democrats voted against increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour for everyday hardworking Americans. Yeah. But let's get into what Ross Story is saying. Congress negotiated a little notice change to the rules in December, changing how members are reimbursed in a way that amounts to as much as a $34,000 tax-free pay increase. Quote, for the past dozen years, House members have declined to take a cost of living increase in the annual spending bills, fearful of a political backlash if they were seen to give themselves a raise. End quote. And this is reported by Stephanie Lay and Reed J. Epstein. Continuing on with the quote, but the provision tucked into internal rules that typically receive little attention from the public and without any open debate in Capitol Hill could amount to a subsidy of about $34,000 per member this year, according to an estimate based on current government reimbursement rates. That would be a substantial increase for lawmakers who spend weeks on end in the nation's capital where living costs are among the highest in the United States. The new rule proposed by Democrats on the House Administration Committee was approved with no objection in December, but rank and file members were not informed widely about it until Tuesday. In an email sent by the chief administrative officer of the House, which was obtained by the New York Times and reported earlier by Bloomberg News, congressional offices were advised not to submit reimbursement requests for rental and housing costs until the committee issued additional guidance. Rank and file senators and representatives currently receive $174,000 a year in base pay. However, the House Speaker, Senate President pro tempore, and party leaders have higher salaries. This comes after the United States went through the worst period of inflation since the 70s, driven in large part by disruptions to global energy markets. Wages in the private sector have been rising in response, meaning the real value of congressional compensation has been eroded. Members of Congress approving wage hikes for themselves has long been a political flashpoint. The Bill of Rights was originally supposed to contain an amendment barring congressional pay increases from taking effect until the next session to discourage members from spending on themselves too aggressively. However, that amendment wasn't ratified until 1992 when it became the 27th Amendment. Wealthier people running for Congress have sometimes promised to refuse to accept congressional pay if elected. Promise doesn't mean they did. However, some good governance experts have argued members of Congress should be paid more. Some argue this allows them to also give raises to their staffers, not all of whom are rich. Others have argued current congressional salaries are not enough to comfortably afford a residence in Washington, D.C., plus one in their own district, which means only people who are rich to begin with can afford to run for Congress. Listen, it is clear that when it comes down to pay, all members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, are looking out for their own pockets. And let's be clear, each and every one of them benefit financially for having the title of congressman. A low wage, $174,000 is a low wage. If the rising cost to live in Washington, D.C. is bothersome, Why don't they do something legislatively about it? But they won't do that on the federal level, because then the rest of us, the little people, will benefit from that. And they don't want that. Yeah, how crazy would that be? Members of Congress working on some type of legislature that helps everyone when it comes to rising living costs. And I'm talking about the cost of homes. I'm talking about rent costs. I'm talking about groceries, food. Yeah. And they voted down increasing the minimum wage. Just thought y'all should know. Later.